Oh, hey, how you been? It's time for another edition of top top 10 worst lists of all time. I'm your host for this odyssey. My name's Ravi Kanker, and before we get into just so exciting. The top 10 worst list I've got for you today is just, it's stupendous, is what it is. It's going to enlighten you and brighten your day, and it's going to be your cake. You'll have your cake and you'll eat it too. It'll be just incredibly. It's going to be transformational. But before we get to that, I'm obligated to run through a few disclaimers. Number one, I'm deeply disturbed in the mental department, unbalanced. I'm off my meds. And therefore I can't be trusted or relied upon. So any of the things that I say in the course of this particular episode are, when people are presumed innocent until proven guilty, in theory. I mean, not in practice, but in theory. There's an idea about that. Today's day and age, of course, we all know that, you're guilty by rumor or innuendo before you're allowed any opportunity to be able to even be formally charged. Just ask, like people like Kevin Spacey and stuff. I'm not saying that he's an innocent babe in the woods or anything like that. Far from it. I'm sure I feel my life experiences have informed me contextually with the machinations of rich people, privileged people, superstars and whatnot, and their propensity to take liberties. But as many accusations as he had, he beat the rap, found not guilty, and his life is ruined, isn't it? So I don't think why be hypocritical at this point? Let's just presume everybody is guilty when charged by anyone, and we'll just pay whatever consequences that winds up dealing to our society. And anyway, so I certainly can't be trusted. I would say that an analogy that I was alluding to with that digression would be that the things that I say should be thought of as invalid until proven valid. I think that's probably a wise policy for everybody to have in today's day and age, especially when they're looking at, the corporate-controlled mouthpieces in the world, and even your alternative resources. Those people are all being paid by the same people. Your Jon Stewarts are, being paid, in my opinion, by the same people who are paying that Shapiro guy from the Daily Wire. It's all, massive illusion where nobody can be trusted. Just my personal opinion. Number two, I am not partisan. It's going to seem like it. I got no skin in the game. I've shot my load, as it were, in the uterus of life, and I was shooting blanks. It came up empty. I got zero return for my buck, and So I've got, I really couldn't care less about either side. They all seem fake to me. Seems like a setup, a plain old low-hanging fruit of divide and conquer, where we're all being played and we're all wrong to a certain extent. Yes, there's lots of, bigotry and racism, but there's also intolerance on the left. It was open-mindedness used to be, and fair play used to be highlights that characterized the left that I knew many years ago, but I'm not buying it anymore. I don't think that the left, the people who are leading it, certainly have any commitment to representing the working class, the middle class, the poor, the independent business people that they were supposed to be servicing all the time. I think they're just, Democrats in name only that are serving the ruling elite's agenda just as much as the people on the right and the leaders. And all the rest of us, because of that, because there is no real representation of any of us, we're all, sort of demented and victims. Number 3, I'm trying to create a movement where we all love everyone and everything equally together. It's kumbaya time, baby. It's time for the golden rule to take charge for all of us. Do unto others as you ought to do them to you. Period. End of story. And today, now we can get on with things. Today's top 10 list is in part sponsored by the world premiere of I can't remember. I'll check it out and get back to you. Was it Manscaped from New York? From the producers of Escape from New York, now comes Manscaped from New York, where people are trimming grooming the body hair of Snake Plissken, and just a tremendous amount of good things happening. Contraceptive SpongeBob, from the producers of SpongeBob SquarePants, now comes Contraceptive SpongeBob. The Sixth Sense, from the producers of the movie The Sixth Sense. Now comes a sequel with no equal, where the kid is a burnout. He's getting all smoked out. And he says, I see dead people, ... grateful dead people. All right, so now the business at hand. It's another musical one today. What a great time in your life this must be. And today's top 10 worst of list is the top 10 worst Neil Young albums ranked. And hey, I don't see Neil Young as being like a sacred cow or anything like that. Here's a guy who's done 40-something albums. I'm not exaggerating. This guy's been around forever doing albums left and right like nobody's business. And unfortunately, for all the rest of us, he's been doing all these albums and just horrible, most of them. And super self-indulgent and completely droll and passionless. And Neil Young's the type of guy. He doesn't have a whole lot of, he can, in his heyday, he could rip a great solo and stuff, but it's all based on, just him taking the guitar and pounding on it as hard as he can, stretching the strings and stuff. It's not like he's got virtuosity. It's not like he's been practicing his scales at any point in his life based on the way he plays. Now, some of that is great. I love some of that. Better to Burn Out, Jam, whatever that song was. And, he's got some great jams. But again, sort of the other musical icons that I got to have that checked. I've examined on previous editions of Top 10 Worst List, included Eric Clapton and Paul Simon. And these are guys who, at their peak, you could say that, a lot of the stuff that they were doing was good, except in the case of Paul Simon. But it was like Eric Clapton had like a 5-year window where he was doing some cool stuff. And then he spent 55 years doing like the worst, most forgettable plastic dreck in all of recorded history. And it's just dull and monotonous, a drone of unremarkable, it's worthless. Absolutely, it's incomprehensible to me that somebody who wouldn't practice his instrument or focus on being as passionate or expressive as they possibly can could get paid for 55 years for doing this miserable, emotionless, phoning it in. Why do people pay him? And same with Paul Simon. He had a little bit of a surge. He went from about, 66 or something like that to about 74, where he was occasionally coming out with stuff. Most of the stuff that he came out with is totally forgettable. You're like, look at his the best of Simon and Garfunkel's got clunkers left and right. They couldn't even fill up a whole album with hits that don't exist. They got songs that just like Feeling Groovy is like a minute long or something like that. It's just sort of just like a half a song that he just kind of feeling groovy, the end. And I don't know. His albums are still crazy after all these years. Everybody, I love that. Oh, I get to say that about Paul Simon. I haven't listened to that or even needle dropped it, and thank goodness in a long, long time. But it's just as per my memory of stuff, there's just one good song and maybe two. And the rest of it is just the self-indulgent stuff, and then his lyrics have no meaning whatsoever. It's just like word salad, like a lot of Paul McCartney's stuff is. But Paul McCartney has actually done a few albums, not a lot, but out of the billion albums that he's done, he's got 2 or 3 that are okay. That new album is pretty good. The Thing I Buried in the Backyard or whatever that album is, a lot of people think that's good. Temporary Secretary is a cool song. It's weird. And he's got this album that he did like with one of the, it might be on this list today. Yeah, it is on this list. I'll get to it later. For the replacements for the Neil Young albums that nobody should subject themselves to. These 10, I've got Neil Young, some of the worst music. It's not even music. Some of the worst stuff ever passed off as music. Neil Young in particular, okay? Now here's a guy, again, not as nearly as bad as Eric Clapton, who is, I think, a sociopath, who's been murdering other guitarists, and his child who fell out the window, and backstabbed George Harrison by stealing his wife, and left every band that he consented to join, left them all on the lurch, from the Yardbirds to Blues Breakers to Cream to, especially Blind Faith. Now, you shouldn't have any love loss of Blind Faith. This, could have been a really great band if they would have stuck around long enough to be able to kind of flesh it all out. Speaking of flesh it all out, Blind Faith, of course, had the cover of their album, their one and only album, was a topless 11-year-old girl. And they got a Grammy nomination for Best Album Artwork for that album. So it shows to go, what the system is all about, what it's actually looking to reinforce in us culturally, and what they take away from us is our spirit. And that's what they do. They figured it out when they saw the original progenitors of rock and roll, who were turning people on, and the early charismatic days of Dylan, those 3 albums that he created in leading up to 1966, when they gave him the Zot and got rid of the original Bob Dylan and replaced him with a body double, who I think very well might have been Neil Young. And so, but here, seriously though, I mean, they purged the hell out of all the progressives in the United States to sterilize our spirits and put us under the boot heel of their closeted fascist clandestine government. Prove me wrong. And because if you take a look at all of the really iconic leftward-leaning progressives in all of our cultural mechanisms, it is a laundry list of mysterious, inexplicable murders and destruction of their lives and careers. Take just one guy. Let's take one guy. I was going to say Werner Herzog. Oh, I'd love to take that guy, put him on this video. But no, I'm thinking about not J. Edgar Hoover, Murrow, Edward R. Murrow. That's the one I'm thinking of. Edward R. Murrow. Okay, he becomes famous, right, for taking down or helping to take down McCarthyism, which was again another purge of lefties. The Hollywood 10, all kinds of different people had their lives ruined. And they were all progressives. They were all like leftward-leaning people. And they said it's an anti-communism thing. But the Nazis said that when the Reichstag burned down in 1933 so that they could get away with passing the Enabling Act, which, basically was like, the precursor to our Patriot Act, and said, in order for us to be able to protect freedom in a country, we have to take away freedom. So it's like, oh, okay, good show. And the burning of the Reichstag and everything like that, blamed it on the communists. Well, they blamed the purge of all the lefties on the communists here in the United States. You didn't start to put together the similarities then, did you? You're too busy taking a nap. You're too busy, watching as many episodes as you possibly could of Amos and Andy television show, the most racist television show in the history of the biggest racist country in the history of the world. So screw you, buddy. I'm right on this one. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. And if you push back and deny it, it's just you reacting against your brainwashing. There's just something within, I don't know what it is, but within the science of brainwashing, that if something comes close to deprogramming you, you lash out against it. You bully, you push, you call on, scraps of indefensible nonsense to try to explain away the truth. It's enough. God damn. The hell's wrong with you? It's the end times for the human race. The AI robots are going to be coming at any minute now. You have no idea how advanced these robots are. I mean, they think for themselves. They do what they want to do, but they still, will be trained to be a police force at the very least. And at the very worst, it'll be a militia for the imposition of a robot-driven police state. And there's no way, I don't care what you think, is going to happen that we'll be able to defeat them once they do that. And it's very likely that once they get the robots advanced enough to where they can create all the luxury items that the rich people are used to, that they'll just dump the human race into a giant pit. That big pit that the meteor that killed all the dinosaurs in Russia, wherever the hell that is. Just dump all the humans. Dump them. They're not going to give us a monthly stipend. 8 billion stipends. It's not going to happen. Just so that we can sit around and make trouble. I mean, it's not just the stipend. You got to pay for healthcare. You got to pay for clean air. You got to pay for food for 8 billion people who are just sitting around, remember, doing nothing. Because the robots will be doing anything. When was the last time you did that? They invented so we used to spend, like a week cleaning a shirt because we used to have to bang it against a rock until it was clean. So you'd have to bang it for like a whole week, basically. And then some jerk off invented the frickin' washing machine. And so now we didn't have to spend a week cleaning a shirt. We could just basically do it with about 5 minutes worth of labor on the front end and about 20 minutes folding it up or ironing it or whatever the hell we had to do on the back end. In post-production, as we call it in biz. So anyway, what happened to the week? The week of time that we saved that we no longer had to do all this manual labor, where did the week go? It got monetized, and then the ruling elite kept it. They kept the week. So a week would cost us X amount of dollars, and that was the money savings that they had when they translated it into the profits that they were making from the selling of the laundry machines, and they kept all the profits. That's how it happened. And who's to say that, we've solved that problem since then? They're just a bunch of, again, mindless, obedient drones. We haven't solved squat. That week's worth of time should have been paid back to us in either a ton of time off or monetarily that should have been saved. Should have been shared with us when they started making these big profits off the laundry machines. But they never did it, and we never said boo. We didn't even have conceptually realized that's what was going on. We just kept, and they'd throw us into, subservience in some other arena. Shirtwaist factories in Manhattan with chains on the door to keep us from escaping when it's set on fire. And all kinds of nastiness. And we never got any, they kept it all for themselves on the top end of the thing. And, they're doing it more now. They're giving themselves big, gigantic, obscene tax cuts, and which lead to gigantic amounts of debt. So they're getting it on the front end in the form of lower taxes. And now we owe them $41 trillion. On top of the interest we have to pay every week. They've already increased, God bless it, sorry. They already increased their wealth by 88% in the last 4 years. With the shrinkflation and the greedflation and everything like that, the end of competition, who knows where all that stuff's going to end up. It's not going to be pretty. And they're hoarding. They're not hoarding just out of greed. They're hoarding to make sure that there's nothing left for us to be able to turn the tide. So we don't have enough resources to be able to build an opposition to the end of the human race that these sociopaths who are in charge of the world are clearly heading us towards. Where was I? Oh, freaking 24 minutes in already. 25 minutes. I'm sorry, I keep going off on this stuff. If you don't know, then you just be a victim. Who gives a rat's ass? You don't. All right, so here we go. The worst Neil Young albums ranked. And again, Neil Young is just, it was a guy just like Paul Simon and Eric Garfunkel, Clapton, that was, for a minute, was really great, and then nothing. Buffalo Springfield, which really, and I'll talk about this, I'll try to anyway, later on, that the Buffalo Springfield was a band that showed a lot of great potential, but, it didn't really get to the level that it could have and should have, in large part because Neil Young couldn't be bothered. And every 5 minutes he's taken off and backstabbing somebody. It could have done some great things. It was never at a point where it showed more potential for a world that desperately needed cultural leadership and whatnot. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. That one album they did, Deja Vu. I know they did another one somewhere along the line. It was just garbage. But that Deja Vu album and the Ohio single and stuff like that, here's a band that had enough power in the industry and enough sales and recognition and everything like that, could have made a much different world. Had they stuck together and capitalized on that, and all four of them churning out hits for 5-6 years, becomes the kind of takes the place of the vacuum that the Beatles left when they broke up, right as Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young were coming online, and then they Neil Young left, and they were I don't care if you're fighting and everything like that. These things are super rare, and the self-indulgence was such, and selfishness was so beyond measure that these guys couldn't figure out that the gift that they were given and the gift that we were so desperately needed in our society, and then it just all went messed up, man. All these people did it. It wasn't just them. Gabriel left Genesis, and Bill Bruford left Yes, and Cream disbanded. I mean, a lot of these people didn't realize that, how rare the window was that we were working with, and what it meant in terms of the very fragile human spirit, and and none of the ones. I mean, all those guys stuck around. They could have had so much more power. Even the frickin' Monkees. Okay, here's a band that's artificially manufactured and stuff like that. I get it, but they put this machine together. The Wrecking Crew doing the music and the Brill Building, and iconic guys like Neil Diamond and Harry Nilsson and Goffin and King, and people were writing the songs for them were just so profoundly talented, and they were just churning the brilliant music out that just sounded amazing. That they were putting out, and the Monkees were like, "No, you know what? We need to be more authentic." And it's just like one of the biggest mistakes that there was. Just play the game for a while and become powerful so that you can really afford to do things on your own terms once you're super iconic. But they put the brakes on before they got to that level, and so they never really could consolidate their power and their influence in society. And they could have been the biggest. It's a machine, but so what? The Beach Boys were using all the same guys on their albums. Freaking Beach Boys, man. And sure that everybody was coming down on the Monkees because they weren't playing their own instruments and it was a different time. But a lot of those guys weren't playing their own instruments, dude. And so they've got, especially with the Beach Boys, everybody these days looks at the Beach Boys like, wow, what a powerhouse. You know what? Brian Wilson, for all of his brilliance and genius, was nothing without Jack Nietzsche, and Phil Spector's guys. Those are all Phil Spector's guys. Everything that Brian Wilson was doing was all just copycat off of Phil Spector, for the most part. I mean, he embellished it a little bit with the barbershop harmonies of the Beach Boys that they were doing in the late 50s, early 60s and stuff like that. So maybe a little bit different with the voicings and such, but it was all the same guys, all the same studios. And then when Phil Spector stopped doing music in 1966 upon the failure of River Deep Mountain High with Ike and Tina Turner. When that single failed, Phil Spector stopped doing music. And guess what? 2 seconds later, so did Brian Wilson. It was weird, man. I mean, I think there were other psychological things going on with Brian Wilson, and maybe he was getting a couple of doses of some psychotropic drugs from our friends over at MK Ultra and stuff to fry his brain, as part of the overall purge. But hey, what the hell? So the Monkees were using the same guys as all those. Nobody was bothering the Beach Boys when they were coming out with Good Vibrations. It was done by a bunch of studio musicians. I mean, everybody was thinking, "Wow, this is one of the great songs of all time," and stuff. And Pet Sounds wasn't super popular when it came out. It was critically acclaimed and whatnot, but it didn't, do big old sales. So it was a disappointment. So people weren't really looking at them as being, as much of a titan as people do in hindsight being 2020. But I think that a lot of people just sort of think about, how good the Beatles were and the Stones and, some of the other bands that were coming along the line. The Byrds with, what's his name's 12-string Rickenbacker had, even though the Byrds were using a lot of the studio musicians too, there was virtuosity there. They were the incipient sort of emerging virtuosity that was happening within the rock genres and their related tendril musical genres that they inspired in those days. And then Hendrix came in and just changed the game completely. Now Hendrix actually opened for the Monkees on tour, so the Monkees were down, man. The Monkees were down, but they ruined it because they could have been mega, and then they could have called all the shots, and they would have been able to have their own sort of production company and label and everything if they would have played the game for a couple of years and just chilled out. Because they would have, they already had the biggest song of the 60s with I'm a Believer and had 2 gigantic albums and their own TV show on a network on top of it. None of the guys would ever get that again. Nobody. They would never have that type of machine behind them that was looking to make, what essentially were progressive, leftward-leaning liberals into gigantic stars like that. It would never have it again. And they didn't, sure, they didn't have the perspective, and that's part of what it was, but it was a big letdown. And Neil Young was at the vanguard of all of that by being such a, cantankerous loner and not putting in the time and the putting the nose to the grindstone enough to be able to make Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young. The playing field was wide open. A lot of the other people died. And so they could have been the biggest. And that Deja Vu album it's badass. But, so Neil Young comes out with some solo albums, and he does last for a long time. His vitality, unlike, Eric Clapton, whose vitality died in 1971 forever. Neil Young did stuff throughout the 70s, pretty much. And then fell apart, I don't know. Started doing the Trans album and Learning to Fly. Just started to show a lot of regrettable burnout and lackluster efforts, of which we are now about to feature 10 of them. The 10 worst Neil Young albums ranked number 10. And these are mostly way after his heyday. Storytone, released in November of 2014. Here he's got his songs are so unremarkable that he's augmenting them with boring big bands, totally out of context, big bands and orchestras, stuff that, you'd never see him using in his heyday when the songs spoke for themselves. And, one of the signs that a musical artist is done is when you start tossing in a bunch of superfluous orchestrations and horn sections and stuff like that. It's a red flag, is what it is. I'm telling you. And this Storytone album is just, it's like dry humping a porcupine. That's how painful it is to listen to. I'm going to suggest, though, on these rankings, I'm not like most of the people just like bash things to try to get. I'm trying to do this to inspire people with better music. I want to replace the ones I'm telling you to take off your playlist with something that's actually worthy, that's kind of groovy, and that has a lot of pep in its step, and will inspire you to it was something juicier and tastier with more meat on its bone. And for number 10, I'm looking at a band called Big Star and their album Number One Record. Now, this album has got a lot of, sort of Neil Young-ish, sort of the same time period that Neil Young was flourishing the most in the 70s and stuff. And Big Star was Alex Chilton, who was the former lead singer of the Box Tops, who put together this band called Big Star. And this was one of the, and I think it's sort of emblematic of what was going on in that whole time period where, trite, vanilla, performing acts such as Bad Company are getting all the spins, right? With this just horrific, boring, brain-reducing pablum, and eventually, you get Foghat, and another one that I cited was Melanie, and then it gets worse with Debbie Boone and the Carpenters, and some of when Styx evolved into an unlistenable band of sellout and disposable nothing, and Chicago after the death of Terry Kath. And all these people are getting major league spins for this music that is just zombifying. And then Big Star, who are belting it out with all kinds of passion with music that's got great, memorable hooks, can't be found. It's not nowhere on nobody's radar. Not getting any spins, not getting any hits, nothing. I think that was all intentional. I think they're looking to do, hey, look, the Clash's first album was banned in the United States. The one really punk album that they did, if you were going to get it, you had to get it as an import. Big Star, number one record, bangers, left and right, one after the other. And their second one, I think the third one's got, I can't remember what's it opens up with this great, there's other great, all the stuff that they did was at least really, really good. Second album's got some really great stuff on it. Third album, I think, is the one that opens up with this song. It's just one of the greatest riffs of all time. And so joyful and expressive. And just, you listen to it and you're like, I think I'll repaint the house or something. It's like that type of thing. They don't want us to have that type of stuff. They don't want us to be enlightened, inspired, and have any mental health whatsoever. So they bombard us with, this supercilious, sorry, I'm not in great shape. With massive amounts of garbage. Speaking of massive amounts of garbage, let's go back to the Neil Young albums. Number 9, the Monsanto years. There actually has an album called the Monsanto years. This isn't like the name of the title of a PowerPoint presentation. So 2015, June 2015. Now, look, I get it. Monsanto with the GMOs and all that kind of stuff. Evil. Okay, they won't. I don't think they allow GMOs in Europe at all. And yet, here in the United States, they're like, yum, num, 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 num. Give me them tasty, tasty GMOs, man. I can't get enough of that. On the brand new food pyramid, the upside down food pyramid, I think it's shaped intentionally to look like a devil head. God, sorry. They tell you to have, I think it's like 35 different servings of fat every day in the new food pyramid, which is, only a slight improvement over the food pyramid that I had when I was a whippersnapper, where they had us eating 75 different servings of grains and carbs. So they've never done us any real services, those power punks at the top of the food chain. But I think that the new one's got, 12 servings of GMO every day is recommended on the new modern day RFK brainworm guy. And his, look, it's great and everything like that. You want to make the food supply safer and whatnot. But, I mean, at the same time that they're focusing on red dye number 2 and making that better, that they've got every single day, sometimes 3-4 times a day now, where they've got food recalls or something that got into the food chain that's screwing things up, including 3 times in the second half of 2025 where they recalled shrimp because it was radioactive after they dumped a ton of radioactive wastewater from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant spill that's still pumping out radiation into the atmosphere and into the they have to cool it with water still as much as they did when the accident happened. And so we're just, I don't know, they didn't have any place to put the water, so they finally dumped it in the Pacific Ocean. And 20 seconds later, they're recalling all the shrimp that they've harvested from the same area because it's radioactive. Well, how do you prioritize all the food recalls that we're seeing on a daily basis? It's never been this bad, and even close to this, but we used to see like a food recall every, 2-3 times a year. Now it's like 2-3 times a week, sometimes 2-3 times a day. They got the microplastics and this, they got a bad ingredient list and that, they got this and that, and they're scaling back on the government agencies that do the oversight of all that stuff to the point where, at some point we're not even going to know. It's just going to be Katie bar the door on internal diseases, and it's just not, it doesn't make any sense unless you're intentionally trying to, screw people up, make them too sick so they can't fight back when they start rounding us up with the AI robots and shipping us off to the death camps. Bleak, huh? But another thing, I just saw this the other day where they've got, they made Mike Tyson one of the spokespeople for the Make America Healthy Again campaign. And I'm I'm watching Mike Tyson actually in one of the little commercials that they had with him. He's punching out somebody who's trying to eat food with red dye number 2 or something like that. It's Mike Tyson saying that you need to eat healthier. Isn't this the guy that was convicted and did time for rape? Now, look, he's served his time. I'm not trying to be down on people who've reformed themselves after they got out of prison. They've served their time. They did their paid back society and everything like that. I don't want to conflate. The point I'm trying to make is not whether or not ex-cons deserve to make a good living or have a job. What I'm trying to say is that with all the Epstein statutory rape charges that are going on here in February of 2026, to add a confirmed, convicted rapist into a government paid for public service announcement campaign is insane. I mean, why would you? I mean, there's so many. There's still a few great people that people will listen to here and there. I think, I'm sure it's a shorter list than it's ever been before. But how does Mike Tyson get on that list? Where you're paying him to public service announcements, a convicted rapist in a climate where everybody's talking about the statutory rapes that are going on in the highest levels of our society and government. It's like, talk about tone deaf. Now, I don't think it can be tone deaf. I think it's intentional. And they're waiting for people to pick up on it to see how tuned out we are. And nobody's picking up on it. Nobody's commenting on it, except for right here at Top 10 Worst List. And that's why the Monsanto Years by Neil Young is, it's in the right ballpark. I mean, I get why he wanted to do something like that, but it's executed so poorly. It's cringe heavy, an hour-long rant at Monsanto, which kind of translates, when people listen to it, translates to like some old man yelling at kids to get off my lawn. It's ponderous. It's like that movie, Gran Torino, where Clint Eastwood is yelling at a bunch of rowdy punks, get off my lawn. That's what Neil Young sounds like on the Monsanto Years album. Get off my maybe he's so pissed off because one of his biggest albums was Harvest, and so he's got like a special place in his heart for harvesting, and so genetically modified seed material could be a pet peeve of his. I don't know. The album is just absolutely horrible. And it does a disservice because it just makes him seem like a jerk off. And it tarnishes the very righteous and necessary idea to do, at the very least, more research on that stuff. Maybe get it off the shelves and stop polluting our bodies. But I think, with radioactive shrimp floating around in our food chain, that we've got bigger fish to fry. Anyway, number 9, to replace the Monsanto, I can't even believe it. It's an album title. It's just, I'm going with Neutral Milk Hotel and an album called In the Airplane Over the Sea. Now, this is a big departure from the musical stylings of Neil Young. What I'm suggesting here is that had Neil Young not just started to phone it all in at some point and never challenged himself musically, never, work in, idioms with people who could push him to refine, expand upon his earlier expressiveness and virtuosity. He never grew as a songwriter or a musician or even a lyricist, really. And I think that, Neutral Milk Hotel kind of feels like that could have been a direction that he could have gone to. And it's just sort of like expounding upon what would have happened in Buffalo Springfield if those guys hadn't been so flighty, if they would have been able to, again, dedicate themselves to doing something meaningful and rarefying it and refining it to the nth degree to make, because they were starting a lot of what Neutral Milk Hotel does, and the album is called In the Airplane Over the Sea, and it's a classic. It's a powerhouse of expressiveness, and it's got tons of vibe, and it's got an awful lot of sort of riffs and genres and influences, but it all still kind of feels unified at the same time. these are the types of things that a Buffalo Springfield, had they been allowed to, foster their sound and knuckle down and stick together for a while, could have evolved into, and I feel like they would have evolved into. But in the meantime, we've got, rightly or wrongly about my assertion, Neutral Milk Hotel is infinitely more entertaining and inspiring than any of these albums that Neil Young on my top 10 worst list today. And I'm sorry to say, because Neil Young at one point, Cortez to Killer, Needle and the Damage Done, what's it? Love is Like a Hurricane, even, and Rock and Roll Never Die, and Rockin' in the Free World, and all that stuff is just powerhouse music. It really is. And rock and roll, in many respects, never got better than some of the things that he did. But there's no sign left of any of that vitality, any of that sneer Neil Young had on albums like On the Beach or Tonight's the Night, where he was just adrift and ensconced in anger and rebellious feelings. And it's just gone. So we have to look elsewhere. You can't wait for him to come around because, based on what he's been doing the last 20 years or so, it's gone. Thanks for your service. Leave us alone now. We've got other things to do. I don't know who the hell's buying this one. Number 8, Broken Arrow from 1996. Boring, underwhelming, and even though Crazy Horses with them, most of it sounds like Neil Young versions of like nursery rhyme type songs. It's just like, listen to this stuff. It's like, where is that guy who was doing like, When You Dance, I Can Really Love. It just doesn't exist anymore. There's not even a sign of it on the horizon. This stuff is so devoid of that, powerhouse soul that he had. I don't know, something that maybe, he was killed off like the original Bob Dylan and replaced with a body double of somebody who just looks like Neil Young and can, So replacing that travesty of music-ish type stuff, I've got Sonic Youth, Daydream Nation. Now, it again, not. I'm trying to keep these similar, but the fact is that Sonic Youth here, Daydream Nation, is just a vibe-oriented type of rage against blandness and a powerhouse expressiveness that Neil Young used to be able to call forth from within him quite easily and regularly. Sonic Youth and Daydream Nation is in that type of space where they will do things that will be like, it doesn't sound like Neil Young's music at all. It's the vibe that they're creating and the rage against the dying of the light, the shaking of their fist against the dying of the light type of thing that I felt was a real important part of what Neil Young seemed to be. Now, we didn't put together, I don't think anybody's ever really put together that this guy was flighty and that some of the endeavors that he was involved in, he seemed to just bail on, like a junior version of Eric Clapton. But Sonic Youth, if you're listening to any of this new age Neil Young stuff, just give it up. Try something new. Try Sonic Youth, Daydream Nation. Great stuff. Again, different than Neil Young, but it's still got that, it's got power and you're feeling it. And you're like, these guys these guys know their stuff, and they know how to express power and turn it into inspiration, which is what we need right now more than anything. What we don't need is another one of these albums here, number 7, The Visitor, released in 2017. Sounds like Neil Young singing his version of the daily newspaper. Okay, so it's like, hello dear and really pretty. The weather today is gonna be sunny. It has some interesting embellishments here and there, but they get beaten to the ground due to the lack of good material and performances from Neil. I mean, there's only some interesting backup vocals. Well, so far, the interesting-ish background vocals and little, sort of like accoutrement will take a project before it becomes solid and stale, and it runs its course. Because it's only meant to augment things, so it's not meant to be a feature of the music itself. And in the absence of having a centralized, inspirational base for all of this stuff to flourish over the top of and stuff, it just becomes trite and boring. And that's what it's happened on The Visitor. It becomes just sort of just no. It's directionless. It's all right. So I'm suggesting, and here's what I was referring to earlier. Replace that with another, again, sort of like from the same era, a little bit earlier, in fact. Paul McCartney. Now, Paul McCartney has exhibited a lot of the same types of things that Neil Young has and Eric Clapton, where a lot of the stuff feels phoned in, and a lot of the word salad stuff like Paul Simon, where it just doesn't make any sense. It's not, I mean, what are you talking about, Macca? Paul McCartney just will put words together because they sound good and they're easy to articulate when he's singing a melody. And that's frustrating. Because this is a guy who's been in the thick of it. When he did the press conference that John Lennon was killed, he just stared like it didn't mean anything. And he talked like it, like, I gotta go, see ya, bye. And it's just like, well, pretty cold and dispassionate type of a guy. I don't know that the guy has real feelings. I mean, clearly he is very expressive and creative when it comes to making music, but it doesn't always seem like he feels what he's talking about. Like it's so convoluted. What his lyrics just go just shapeless avenues that don't connect with any real things in the world or feelings that people could possibly have, or relationships or whatever. It just all seems like, take him away, I want to believe the day, blah, 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 so much now. And Ebony and Ivory seems like infantile. I mean, it's, sort of kindergarten level intellect and stuff. I mean, it's good to sing about that stuff. It needs to be sung about. But, it just never progresses past that sort of superficial stage with him. Even the songs that do have, coherent themes that you can tie into some sort of reality. And Paul McCartney's been like that for a long time. But he started releasing, at some point after like Tug of War, his stuff just started to become like completely forgettable more often than not. And just kind of, again, phoned in. But he comes up with Egypt Station. People think they like that. I've listened to that. I'm not so sure. That stuff in the backyard, where he's sitting in the backyard with the guy who did, I don't know, I think it was Radiohead or something. I don't know. A lot of people say that's good. I've listened to it. There's some interesting things going on, but I would never listen to that whole thing. It's so sprawling and boring in the bulk of it. Some things that I've heard are okay and good, but he's got that album New, which I've listened to, and parts of that are pretty good. And, he'll come up with an interesting track or two. Band on the Run is terrific. And, Venus and Mars has got some great stuff on it. And the bass line and Silly Love Songs and Temporary Secretary on McCartney too, and Maybe I'm Amazed is perhaps the greatest rock song there's ever been. And so he's been capable here and there, and I like Back to the Egg and stuff on that album is pretty good and whatnot. But London Town can be trite and it's sing-songy, and again sort of infantile, and all kinds of different things. He's put out. Flaming Pies is boring. Run Devil Run, boring. Give me a freaking break. But he got together with, I think it's one of the guys from, I'm sorry, I shouldn't, I meant to look this up before I got started on this thing. One of the guys, I think from Killing Joke, got together and did a few albums with this guy, one of which was Electric Arguments. And you listen to the stuff and you're like going, well, this is interesting. This has actually got a little bit of a hint of vitality to it. And it doesn't sound much like, there's trappings of McCartney, like melodious types of things that he will get himself into, but it's got a rougher sound, a little bit of real grit, which is a whole new avenue for McCartney. And with all these little, again, Egypt Station in the backyard thing, and New, and Electric Arguments, it's some signs of life for a guy that's 80-something freaking years old, who's been farting out albums every 2 years or so for all those 80 years, or most of them. It's pretty impressive that he could come up with this Electric Arguments thing, and it's worth a listen. It's worth a listen where Neil Young stuff is not, especially the stuff on this list. So back to toggling here. We're toggling. Greendale is next on number 6 from 2003. This is a rock opera from Neil Young. Now, Neil Young has neither the chops as a songwriter, the chops as a player, or the chops as a singer to do something with continuity and the need for recitatives and all the various different things that go into actually making a real rock opera that functions as a rock opera. This guy, he doesn't have any of that stuff. It's outside of his strength, and I don't blame him for wanting to color outside the lines. Go and get it on, as far as I'm concerned. But he spent 30-something years of his adult life where he just rode on his own coattails and just never challenged himself, never grew as a performer or musician, and he's not capable of doing a compelling opera, rock or otherwise. And it's so pretentious. The Greendale album is so pretentious. It's beyond belief how full of himself he is. Smug, long-winded, with nothing to say. No one on earth wants to hear a rock opera by a washed-up Neil Young. I don't think anybody on earth wants to hear a rock opera from, Neil Young at the height of his powers. Whatever happened to the power? Again, what the powerhouse voice that created Cortez the Killer and, On the Beach and, what's that album? Welfare Mothers. That's Welfare Mothers from Live Rust. Needle and the Damage Done. It's gone. Everything about that person is gone. And it's embarrassing. And we need to replace that album with Elliott Smith is my next pick to replace an album called From a Basement on a Hill. And Elliott Smith has got everything that Neil Young should have had he chosen to grow as a person and a musician in a healthy way. Neil Young is one of these guys who just hit a wall at some point and stopped being, aggressive about his art. Elliott Smith's album, this album is just endlessly inventive and inspiring and energized. And listening to this, it's got, it just keeps bringing in more riffs and harmony, chord harmonies, and all kinds of great stuff. And his voice is just right out there and bright and expressive. And it's just a great listen, and you deserve more than what Neil Young has been pumping out. Make a change for yourself. Choose to be more. What's holding you back? Why do you not want to be inspired anymore? Why do you not want to listen to stuff that's truly expressive? Why do you keep listening to these, pathetic robot, soulless, plastic automatons? It just makes no sense to me. Number 5, an album called Silver and Gold from 2000, which is my little note on it. Again, I'm needle dropping this stuff, to be honest with you. I can't listen to this. Can't handle it. I'm not going to waste any more time than I have to get the gist of this garbage. And it's not deep enough for there to be any surprises beyond the needle drop. So don't, do yourself a favor. It's time that you can't get back, and we're running out of time as a species, as far as I know. Sounds like somebody. It's equal parts cringe and boring, as he regales us with half-assed, trite country music. A couple of country-ish sounding arrangements as part of Harvest in 1974 or whatever the hell it was. It's kind of good. It's inventive. It's different for the guy because he's never really gone that way back in those days. And he's got, Crystal Gale was singing the backups for him and stuff. And, studio musicians in the prime of their talent and career backing him up on that album. And some of the best songwriting there's ever been in rock music and its allied subgenres. But this Silver and Gold, it's not the same person. It's not even close. And it's just a real drag to listen to and a waste of your time and money. Number 5 that I'm looking to replace, I'm going to, this one's a little bit more perhaps aggressive, but I'm going to go with Queens of the Stone Age here, which is at times a fantastic band. They kind of lost their vitality when they kicked out their bass player, who was a big, huge part of their sound and their vibe. And Josh Homme would, take over the band after that. And he threw out, what's his name? Nick Oliveris, I think it is, the bass player, over some rumors that have never been substantiated or confirmed about his abusiveness towards others. And I think it's about women. I don't know. But from what I've read, those are the kind of dribs and drabs I've seen trickle out, but I cannot confirm. And probably shouldn't even talk about, but just to give you some perspective, because Josh Homme, there's a video that I've seen where he's performing on stage and there's a photographer, I don't know, maybe she's too close to the stage or taking too many pictures or whatever, but he walks right up to her and kicks her in the head. So I don't know, Josh Homme apparently disengaged from Nick Oliveri because of his abusiveness, and then he's on stage kicking a female photographer in the head. What's the point, man? But this band, when Nick Oliveri, the first 3 albums that they did, just absolutely phenomenal. It was like a rebirth of music, and of course they ruined it after only 3 albums. Because we just don't, things like that don't survive with any longevity in this world anymore. But I'm telling you, I'm going to recommend their first album, the self-titled album, because it's just so nasty and tasty, riff after riff, regular John, and all these songs are just like nobody's ever heard before, just so fat and juicy, and it's just such a great listen. And almost all the stuff is just like you can listen to it, dozens of times and still groove off of it. The other two albums of the first three are also like this, phenomenal. Songs for the Deaf and Rated R. It's got tune after tune of just like this no holds barred, kick-ass rock and roll. And but I'm gonna go with the first one. And again, this is nothing. This one particular one isn't really directly, have to do with Neil Young per se. But Neil Young was, engaged right around the same time with a lot of the grunge acts and stuff like that, hanging out with Pearl Jam and doing an album as a tribute or song, was a tribute to the passing of Nirvana Boy and whatever. And it's just like, so it's close. It's heavier. It's much heavier. It's stoner rock. But it's sort of like the logical next step of grunge is the stoner rock thing, like Fu Manchu and Helicopters and the best of them all was that and Cayuse, which evolved into Queens of the Stone Age, but that first album, Queens of the Stone Age, man, whoo, hot soup. All right, so back to Garbage Time. Next album on the Neil Young list. Are You Passionate? Yeah, I'm passionate for not listening to this garbage that you're dishing out. 2002, April 2002. Sounds like someone's taken a songwriting class at a School of Rock location and who wouldn't even deserve a participation trophy. That's, it is regrettable, but true. Just, again, just sort of nonsense. You're listening to it and it's like so dull and so uninspired. There's a song by the band Traffic, who was a great sort of, kind of fusion-y rock band where they would draw upon a lot of different styles within their music. And they kind of morphed into some jazz rock-ish type of stuff eventually. But they ran out of steam real quick in an album called Shoot Out of the Fantasy Factory, where they do a song called Sometimes I Feel So Uninspired, which is kind of sums up a lot of what you're hearing from, a big chunky expanse of Paul McCartney's solo material and vast arrays of like Eric Clapton and Neil Young and all these guys. They lose their vitality and become, sort of nothing, totally disposable. Are You Passionate is a great example of this. It's totally forgettable. I wish I never would have spent even the time it took me to needle drop my way through the album. So I'm going to offer a replacement, and this one is kind of in the vein of Neil Young, or what he used to be when he had some vitality left in his toolkit. I'm going with Nick Drake, and I'm going to play the chalk. All of his albums are just unbelievably, it's almost like ethereal, really. But I'm going to go with Pink Moon. I'll play the chalk on this one because it's just him sitting with his guitar, one-on-one, a microphone, a guitar, and Nick Drake in a room doing this album that it's just so pure and so expressive and so sad, and it just makes you feel like something is honest in a universe that's so full of compromise and exploitations. And here's this guy who's so alone in the world that he dies shortly after this album happens. And he makes all this incredible music that everybody's enchanted by, and they can't get any traction for the poor guy. And again, it's that they're doing this intentionally because they're filling the airwaves with all the garbage I've been talking about, with the bad companies and the Debbie Boons and the Leif Garrett, and eventually like the disco garbage and all that kind of stuff. They keep all that garbage pushed out to the front of the list when it comes to the heavy rotation stuff, even as early as the 70s, intentionally, because they want to marginalize all the good stuff to make sure that it doesn't get out there, that they don't start creating a whole bunch of like really effective, charismatic, leftward leaning progressives in music all over again, because they just gotten rid of all of them. They killed them all up. Why do they want to start reprovisioning the tool chest if they don't have any, if they've been doing everything they can to sort of rub them out and replace them with, garbagey people who have no soul. So Nick Drake, I mean, your heart breaks every time, with every song, and yet nothing. But it's a great sort of building upon like some of the songs that Neil Young did. It was an Old Man and Needle and Damage Done, and a lot of that stuff is sort of, that solo guitar stuff where it's just Neil in front of a microphone and look at Mother Nature on the Run in the 1970s, whatever that song is, I forget. But it's like that type of power, expressive power, and it's been totally eviscerated from mainstream levels of distribution, and that's intentional. It is. I'm telling you. Believe me now or pay me later. All right, next we're going to run out of time here. I want to try to pound these out. Number 3, Neil Young's Old Ways from 1985. Again, this is another one of these, much like Silver and Gold, fake country music. The songwriting is so annoying and so talentless. I mean, it's just, it's a real darn shame of what happened to Neil Young. But it's time to be honest about it. The guy is, Neil Young has left the building just like Elvis did. And so, I mean, I'm not even going to talk about it anymore. It's just so dispiriting just to even think about it, talk about it. I'm going to suggest to replace, let's go with Joni Mitchell. And look, you could pick, Ladies of the Canyon, or Blue, obviously, or Court and Spark, or Hissing of Summer Lawns, or Ajira, all of which are just phenomenal and so much more expressive than what Neil Young can bring to the table. In all these albums are pretty much latter day Neil Young. But I'm going with For the Roses, which is a long forgotten album. I'm only doing it because it's a great album. Plus, nobody's heard it. So it's all new stuff. And which is, I think it'll be nice for a lot of people to hear what basically will likely wind up being stuff they've never heard of from Joni Mitchell. That's from her peak era. I think it's right around the time of Blue. And right before she started getting into the jazz and electric pop stuff that she would morph into next, if I remember correctly. Song after song, I don't remember any of them off the top of my head. They aren't any of her big hits, but they're all really great songs, and one of the greatest exponents of expressiveness in all of history at the peak of her form. and it's something that you should really turn on to, and it's going to give you a lot more of a buzz than anything on the Neil Young side of this list. Number 2, A Letter Home, 2014. I got little notes jotted down saying unlistenable, noisy garbage recording on what sounds like an old Victrola wax tube. And this stuff is just so, who the hell? Bad as the fidelity is, these are cover songs on top of it. They're so bad and embarrassing that makes you wonder, how could anybody be tone deaf enough to release this or come up with this stuff? Somebody needs to go up to Neil Young and say, hey buddy, I think you need to take a chill pill or 2 or 3 or 5, and maybe sleep on this before you release this pile of unlistenable noise. And Neil Young has done like a noise album. He did, I think it was Weld or something, which was all like feedback loops and stuff off of his guitar. Right around the, I think it was right around the time of the rest of her live rest stuff, or maybe the one right after that with Keep on Rocking with the Free World, somewhere in that range. And he does, it's all like noise and stuff, and that stuff is better than this pile of garbage, A Letter Home. Do not subject yourself to it. Maybe 10 seconds just to hear how bad it is, and just be like blown away at the how far Neil Young had fallen to do something this regrettable. All right, so I'm suggesting you replace it with, and this is going to be a stretch here, this one, Ween, which is a band that is, occasionally brilliant, diverse, powerhouse, and super creative. And I think this is, again, sort of what I imagine might have happened had Buffalo Springfield stuck together. This Buffalo Springfield was loaded for bear. I had Loggins and Messina were in it, and Stephen Stills, who was, forgotten how great Stephen Stills was for a short amount of time, but really freaking great. He was the guy who did the Stop, Hey, What's That Sound? Everybody knows Gone Down, wrote that. Manassas, which is a great listen of, sort of like this powerhouse. Again, sorry, I'm overusing my words so much, but, I'm not a professional here. I'm just a guy who's looking to make more inspirational things happen in our world. But Manassas is a great listen, a badass, a big group with a couple, 1 or 2 of the guys from the Byrds. I think the bass player or the drummer, Dallas, whatever his name was, and the guy with the permanent afro thing that he did, Chris Hillman. But man, it's fun. If you like some of the heavier stuff of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and you like some of the maybe some of the things that were happening on the Notorious Bird Brothers, where they were doing some heavier stuff there, like was Draft Morning and things. And Manassas might be like in your wheelhouse. Stephen Stills led group, so he's off doing some great stuff, and sort of underrated. But I think Ween, and I'm gonna go with. They've got so many great albums, so much wild music. It's a great band to dig deep on because there's so much going on of what they're into. I'm gonna go with Quebec, only because that I think that particular album kind of meshes in with what I'm trying to sell here, that that it feels like what Buffalo Springfield, if they would have stuck together for a while, might have wound up doing something very diverse. I mean, Buffalo Springfield was really diverse. They had so many, great talents within that band that they could go. And I mean, you had Mr. Soul on one side, then you had Bluebird, and for what it's worth, which is the Paranoid Strikes Deep song. So, I mean, you had it was more people. Wing, I think, as a duo, but you had this like creative diversity, which is I think is very inspirational and keeps people from getting too sort of set in their ways and it keeps them on the edge of their seat, never knowing what's going to come next. And I think that's a beautiful aspect of something like I was talking about Traffic earlier. The first Traffic album, Mr. Fantasy, is has got that sort of thing where they've got a song called Dealer, which has got like a swinging sort of a little bit of Latin flavor to it that Santana would wind up actually doing a cover version of later on, a really good one and pretty popular. And then you had like the psychedelic hard rock of Dear Mr. Fantasy, and then you've got like all out psychedelic pop with Paper Sun and Heaven Is in Your Mind, and and the songwriting is great and it's diverse and touches on a lot of different bases. And I think Traffic had Traffic stuck together longer. I think that they would have been easily could have been the answer to the vacuum left by the dissolution of the Beatles. Because Dave Mason, if you look at the post Traffic albums that these guys released, the solo albums that were released, Dave Mason had a lot of great stuff, especially that Alone Together album, which was the first one he did after he split ways with Traffic, and then of course Traffic after the Steve Winwood's experiment with Blind Faith, the first big huge supergroup, fell apart. When Steve Winwood came back to Traffic after that, they did one of their best albums, if not maybe their best. Many people think it's their best, with John Barleycorn Must Die. So if you think that the songs from Alone Together and John Barleycorn Must Die could have created, if they would have been collaborating at that same point, could have created two albums that would have been spectacular. Then after that, you kind of like never know. Because, that creative sort of friction within a band can make all kinds of good things happen. If you give it if you're patient, and again, it's something that could have turned into a real powerhouse thing. And again, there's some of the songs actually from Last Exit, which was a Traffic album that kind of had some outtakes and whatnot. And there's some great stuff on that album that could have, again, fed into this thing, showing them that the world that they had, some interesting approaches and we're doing some great music. Shanghai Noodle Factory is one of the best songs from that era. It's got all vibe. It's like glowing with vibe. And Medicated Goo is a great song that had commercial traction. If they would have built on those things, who knows? But anyway, Ween is that type of thing where it's got, through all the diversity, it's just endlessly recharges the batteries of the listener with, keep them guessing, keep them on their toes. And it's a beautiful thing. So the top Neil Young sucky album, well, no, that's not what we're calling it. Calling it 10 worst Neil Young albums. Ranked number 1 is Americana from June 2012. And it's just absolutely just ridiculous, embarrassing, cringe, crazy horse versions of stale ancient American songbook songs like it's not Nothing Could Be Finer Than Being Carolina, something like that, though. And it's I mean, you listen to the stuff, you're like going, what is Neil Young thinking? I mean, it's so bad and making so many bad choices. And he's doing this stuff. It's like they slapped it together. They're in the garage sometime and like, oh, well, the record company's bugging us. I'll take, a week off my vacation in Turks and Caicos to put Crazy Horse in a room, and we'll just make it up as we go, and we'll do it's just absolutely horrifying and just embarrassing that this is the same guy who did After the Gold Rush. So I've saved the best replacement for Neil Young for last, I think. And it's not that this is better than all the songs sort of objectively albums. I mean, on my earlier replacement suggestions, it's just that this one, these guys are contemporaries of Neil Young in his heyday and came up with so much stuff that was under the radar and underappreciated because they were banned from touring in the United States at their peak, and then they become a very English-centric oriented material and band, and it kind of alienated them from the American audience, and really kind of ruined the potential of what should have been, I mean, a career that's as big as any rock act ever. And of course, I'm talking about the Kinks. And the Kinks had, I mean, just a run of such great albums, Face to Face and Muswell Hillbillies and Something Else by the Kinks and Village Green Preservation Society and my personal favorite, Arthur. One after the other. I mean, these are classic albums, not a bad track in sight. And some of them are Waterloo Sunset and Victoria and Picture Book and Village Green Preservation Society. Just so creative and amazing of an effort, and sounding in some cases just phenomenal. And so unique. It's like unheard of. These guys, if they would have been able to tour in the United States, which again, they were banned from touring for some reason, nobody knows why, but they were banned from touring in the United States. If they were able to tour these albums, not only would they have been a little bit more Americanized in terms of the subject matter, which would have opened up a big, huge market for them, but I mean, they would have been able to become superstars. This stuff would have been they were world killers in the studio in this window before they were allowed to come back to the United States and tour again. But the one that I'm picking out, the one that I'm recommending, is the replacement for this pile of I can't even come up with a word that's insulting enough for the Americana album that registers at a level of displeasure equivalent levels to represent accurately what the piece of refuse that it is. But I'm choosing Lola versus Power Man, which I think it's the chalk. Okay, I get it. Once again, as I did with Pink Moon and Nick Drake, I'm choosing the chalk here in terms of like commonly accepted. I think, by and large, certainly by most rockers, as the Kinks' best album. But it is one of the greatest albums in rock history. I'm thinking that this album is top 5 of all time. It's song after song, it's great. And the subject matter about the phoniness of life in general and the rock and roll business and the duplicity in the world and exploitative nature, and they've got song after song that's just killer. Lola, amazing. Ape Man, amazing. Rats, one of the best riff rockers that was ever done in music. And people, I don't know what the hell, nobody ever talks about Rats. Rats is phenomenal. And then Power Man is a jam. every song is a jam on this album. A epic jam. It is one of the best albums in the rock pantheon. So underrated and underappreciated. And the Kinks did one after another, and there was, all those albums that I rattled off earlier, each and every one of them should be top 200. And some of them are. Anyway, that's all the time we got for this particular thing. That's that annoying sound. It is better and more musical than any of the 10 Neil Young albums that I've put on my worst stuff list today. Sorry, Charlie. Starfish wants tunas that taste good, not with good taste. So clearly, in that respect, they're equal to the people at Neil Young's record label. Anyway, let's wrap it up here. Everything that I've said here is all opinions. Okay, I know that a lot of people, are out there thinking that, Harvest Moon is as good as Harvest, and Greendale's the greatest rock opera since, was it P.F. Sloan? What was that guy with that band with the first rock opera, The Pretty Things? I think it's... which, by the way, it's not The Pretty Things, it's freaking phenomenal. That guy, what's it, Sorrow, P.F. Sorrow? And the song Sorrow is like, baby. Wow, it's such an amazing groove. One or two of those songs, just like, wow. And it's so, it's like it was created in a different world than this regrettable putrescence that Neil Young has been putting out. Oh my God. Oh, sorry. Super painful. So, I know a lot of you are all going to be, pretty upset at what, I'm selling here for a wide array of reasons, I'm sure. I'm not sorry, though. I'm here to express my opinions in a very dark time in the world. And yeah, they're radical and they're different not because of me, but because our society has been geared to manipulate us into being, like we're plugged into the matrix in real life. And it's just completely been deleterious to the growth and expansion of our humanity, which should have happened. We should be, for decades now, we should have been growing and becoming deeper, more aware, and more intelligent, and more equitable of a society. And it's been the exact opposite. We've got a freaking 5th grade reading level average of intelligence in our society. It's been a devolution. And, they put it out there that all the empires and everything like that imploded for various different reasons all throughout history. Only goes to make it more disturbing that those lessons are out there that we should have learned from, and we didn't. Those who forget about their coffee are doomed to reheat it, is I think what I'm leaning towards. Anyway, but, those of you who are out there who hate me for challenging, commonly the sacred cows and common perceptions of things in our society that we accept blindly without reflecting upon or thinking critically about. I didn't mean to step on your toes. And if you're going to hate me for it, then fine. Just, so that and make you feel a little bit better. My life sucks. It's a complete miserable slog every day. Alone, regrets, betrayal. And it's horrible. And I've been like this for 30 freaking years, trying to figure out a way to galvanize awareness and try to inspire people to think on the next level and respond adequately to protect our flagging humanity. And it's earned me a lot of the types of feelings that I'm sure a lot of you out there are feeling towards me now, just denigrating the worthless puke that Neil Young has been regurgitating for so long. Uh, you know, and I make a lot of jokes and stuff like that, but it's not because of anything that I've done that I can laugh about these things and laugh about, sort of my, underwhelming performance as a human being myself. I mean, if I was, and I think I did a top 10 list about reasons why I suck. Top 10 worst list of my foibles. It's out there. I haven't done it yet, but I think it's out there. And it's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be honest and brutal. Put your mind at ease. It's just time for us to finally deprogram ourselves to gracefully but forcefully yank our mouths from around the corporate teat that we've been suckling from for so long and claim for the first time in all of history our birthright and as human beings. And so, but anyway, if you leave some comments, it helps out to the algorithms and stuff like that. If you leave comments, even if they're nasty, whatever you feel like, dumping on me emotionally, whatever. I don't have any axe to grind here on anybody. I don't have any. Don't project any of my damage onto others. And so whatever that is, or if you feel creative or inspired, or you have other suggestions to replace Neil Young. I mean, comments is beneficial. If somebody sees that I'm doing stuff a little different, a little, counterculture-ish types of things, they might breeze through the comments. And if you have suggestions of people who are, a more contemporary that have been doing stuff that's better than some of the things that might be beneficial to some of the people who would read through the comments. I mean, that's great. That's part of what this is. It's not about me. It's about creating a culture of that embraces growth and inspiration before it's too late. And it's really late. So, hey, you know what? Why not click on the like button, subscribe for me, you filthy animals, and let's try to get through this mess together. Oh, wait.